Have you ever smelled it? That sickening sweetness of rotting flesh, hidden beneath the heavy smoke of burning sandalwood. I have, and I learned something that night. The worst monsters in this world do not crawl out from under your bed. They are not waiting in closets. They are not born from darkness. They are born from us, from arrogance, from the cold belief that we know everything. We live in an age of algorithms, fiber optics, synthetic realities. A time when humanity believes the universe can be dissected, organized, and controlled. Lines of code, data sets, clean explanations. So we laugh at the old ways, we mock the whispered warnings of our ancestors, we call them superstition, fear, backward thinking. But karmic retribution does not care about your degree, and the dead do not need your belief to tear your life apart. Tonight, I am sharing a file I wish I could forget, a blood-soaked account of spiritual vengeance. One that still follows me into my waking hours. It is the story of Minh, a man who spat in the face of the unknown, and paid for it, not with his life, something worse, his mind. Listen carefully, every word matters, because the trap he walked into may be the same one you are walking toward tonight. Nightfall Stories welcomes you back to another descent into the abyss. If these truths of the unseen world draw you in, stay with us. Your presence is the only light we carry. When we dig through stories like this, our tragedy begins in the 7th lunar month. Ghost Month, a time feared across generations, a time when the gates of the underworld are said to open, and wandering souls return hungry, restless. Unforgiven, the man at the center of this nightmare was Minh, 25 years old. A software engineer, brilliant, exhausted, and completely certain that logic could explain everything. To Minh, the spiritual realm was nothing, a psychological crutch, a scam for the weak, a tool used to manipulate the frightened. He had no patience for rituals, no respect for warnings, no fear of the dead, after weeks of relentless pressure at his tech firm. Pressure that had pushed him close to collapse. He left the city. He returned to his grandmother's ancestral village, a quiet place beneath an old mountain, far from glass towers, far from fluorescent offices, far from the systems he trusted. The village felt untouched by time. Bamboo groves bent over narrow paths. Old houses leaned under years of rain. And when the wind moved through the mountain at dusk, the bamboo did not rustle. It groaned. Minh arrived exactly as Ghost Month began. He saw fog rolling down the mountain. The villagers saw something else, a chill in the air, a pressure behind the eyes, the feeling of being watched by those who had no bodies left. His grandmother knew. She was a frail woman. Her face carried decades of quiet sorrow. All day she burned joss paper, gold paper, silver paper, offerings for the starved spirits. Her hands shook when she worked, not from age, from memory. She knew the old rules. She knew what should never be touched. Minh watched her from the doorway, a high-end camera hanging from his neck, an amused smile on his face. To him, it was all anesthetic, smoke, lanterns, ancient fear, good footage, nothing more, as twilight approached. The hour when the line between the living and the dead grows thin. Minh prepared to hike into the mountain. His grandmother saw the camera, then the direction of his eyes, and her face changed. She grabbed his wrist, hard. She begged him not to go near the path to Cam Van Temple, the ruined temple, the cursed one. The one villagers avoided even in daylight. Her voice cracked as she warned him, "Do not cross the threshold. Do not touch the altar. Do not mock the offerings." Min laughed. Coldly, he told her that if ghosts were real, he would write software to manage them. Then he pulled his hand away and walked into the fading light. He did not know it yet. But that was the moment his arrogance signed the contract. The mountain accepted it. And the world stopped humoring him. The path upward was narrow, wet, treacherous. As Min climbed, the air changed. The warmth of the Vietnamese summer drained away. Something damp settled into his clothes, then into his skin, then deeper, into the bones. The bamboo along the trail began to move. Not gently, it thrashed. The stalks scraped against one another with a sound like grieving women. Long, thin, human, Min stopped once. Only once. Then adjusted the aperture on his camera. Barometric pressure, he told himself, wind patterns, acoustic distortion. His mind worked quickly, reducing dread into data, breaking the impossible into causes he could name. After an hour of climbing, the ruined Cam Van Temple appeared through the fog. It did not look holy. It looked abandoned by mercy. The roof had collapsed. Vines crawled over broken beams. The courtyard was littered with decaying statues, forgotten deities. Stone faces worn down by rain, until they seemed to be screaming without sound. And at the center of the courtyard, there was an altar, pristine, too clean, too cared for. Fresh incense sticks rested in a rusted bronze urn, unlit, but fragrant. Plates of rotting fruit sat beside them. A stack of golden joss paper waited in silence. To anyone with the smallest instinct for survival, it was a boundary, a line drawn by the dead. To Min, it was perfect. He stepped forward. His boot crushed a line of salt and dried rice across the threshold. The grains snapped under his weight. Small sounds, sharp sounds, he chuckled. "Primitive superstition," he whispered. Then he lifted an old spirit tablet from the altar. The wood was brittle, the names faded. Dust clung to it like skin. Min wiped it clean with his thumb, careless bored. He turned it toward the camera, then frowned. The incense urn was in his shot, so he kicked it aside. The bronze struck the stone with a violent clang. The sound traveled through the ruined temple, then died. Too quickly, Min raised his camera. The flash fired. A white burst cut through the sacred dark. For one fraction of a second, the light revealed the courtyard, the broken statues, the altar, the walls, and a shadow. Tall, thin, wrong, stretching out from behind the altar. It did not belong to him. Then darkness returned, and the mountain changed. The silence vanished, bare feet slapped against the stone. Dozens of them, circling him, fast, wet, unseen. Min froze. His smile disappeared. Something older than reason moved through his body. Not thought, instinct. He swung his flashlight into the darkness. The beam went nowhere. Fog swallowed it whole. A heavy smell filled the courtyard, burning sandalwood, and beneath it, rotting meat. Min ran. He ran down the mountain with the camera beating against his chest. Branches cut his face. Stones rolled beneath his feet. His breath tore out of him in white bursts. But the path had changed. The straight trail was gone. In its place stood a maze of dead trees, twisted trunks, black branches closing behind him. His smartwatch flickered. The screen went black. The compass spun. Then the glass shattered inward. Min kept running. Then he heard his name. Not from the forest, not from the wind, from beside his ear. Min, wet, rattling, as if spoken through lungs full of mud. He squeezed his eyes shut. He recited equations, fragments of code. Anything, anything that belonged to the world he understood. But this was older than mathematics, older than language, older than fear. Then his camera turned on by itself. The screen glowed against his chest. Playback opened. Min slowed. He did not want to look, but he looked. The photo from the altar filled the screen. At first, it was the ruined temple, the courtyard, the fog. Then the image warped. The empty space was no longer empty. Figures stood there, dozens of them, gaunt, hollow-eyed, staring directly into the lens. Their mouths hung open in silent agony, and in the foreground, distorted by the wide-angle lens, stood something taller than the rest, wrapped in funeral rags. One decaying hand reached toward the camera. Toward him, Min tried to scream. Before he could, a heavy hand closed over his shoulder, freezing. Real behind him, Min tore himself away, his jacket ripped. He fell, then ran no direction, no thought, only movement. He tumbled through thorny underbrush, his palms split open, his knees struck stone. At last, he crashed onto the dirt road near his grandmother's village. The forest was behind him, but the thing was not. Escaping the mountain meant nothing, not when something had already tied itself to his soul. Min dragged himself toward the dim light of his grandmother's house. He was bleeding, crying, barely breathing. He reached the wooden door and pounded with both fists. Bloody marks spread across the planks. His grandmother opened it. The moment she saw his face, she knew. Then she smelled it, funeral incense, sandalwood rot clinging to his clothes. She did not scold him, there was no time. She pulled him inside, barred the door, then threw handfuls of coarse salt and glutinous rice against the wood. Her voice shook as she chanted old sutras, protection prayers. Words passed down by people who had learned fear the hard way. Min crawled into the corner of the living room. He hugged his knees. His body shook violently. His mind kept reaching for logic, for explanations, for anything stable. But the world he trusted had cracked open, and something was looking through. For 1 long hour there was only his breathing, ragged, broken, and his grandmother's prayers. Then the room turned cold, not chilly cold. The windows frosted from the inside. Outside, the village dogs stopped barking. All at once, their silence was worse than their noise. Then came the knocking, slow, heavy, measured, not frantic, not human. Each knock shook the house. Min stared at the door. His grandmother kept praying. Her voice grew thinner. The wooden floorboards began to darken. A thick black sludge seeped up between them. It smelled foul, old, dead. It pooled around the ancestral altar. His grandmother dropped to her knees. She began to weep, because now she understood. Her prayers were not failing because they were weak. They were failing because Min had brought home something justified, something offended, something that had been invited. The locking bar on the door did not snap. It rotted right in front of them. Wood became ash. The door opened slowly. Fok entered first, putrid, heavy, with sandalwood and decay. Then the entity stepped inside, tall, wrapped in funeral rags, its hollow eyes fixed on Min. The boy who thought he could code away the afterlife, The boy who needed proof. Now he had it. When the villagers forced their way into the house at dawn, they found the grandmother unconscious, alive, physically unharmed. She lay draped across the ancestral altar, as if her body had tried to shield what prayer could not. Min was in the wardrobe, curled into the smallest shape a man can make, untouched, no wounds beyond the ones from the mountain. But his hair had turned white, not gray. White. Brittle lightly of pigment, the software engineer who demanded evidence for everything had received more evidence than a human mind could survive. Today, Min lives in a high-security psychiatric facility in Hanoi. He does not speak to doctors. He does not recognize his parents. He does not code. He spends his waking hours scratching lines of coarse salt into the floor with his fingernails until they bleed. He mutters apologies to the empty air, again and again and again. The doctors call it a severe schizophrenic break, triggered by acute environmental stress. That is their explanation, clean, modern, useful. But those who know the smell of sandalwood over rotting flesh know what happened on that mountain. Cam Van Temple claimed its tribute, a soul for a desecrated altar, when the 7th month comes and the wind carries the chill of the grave. Lower your head, show respect, trust your science, trust your devices, trust your algorithms. But remember this, the dark is vast, the dead are many, and logic will not save you. When they decide to knock, thank you for walking through the abyss with Nightfall stories. Until next time, keep your doors locked and never, ever mock the shadows.